Hello everybody. In this lesson I will teach you how to classify triangles by looking at either their sides or their angles. And then I will also discuss the little theorem that says the exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the opposite interior angles. Now the first thing is we will be naming triangles according to their sides. The first triangle is a scalene triangle, and there no sides are equal. So you get this triangle, and then the little stripes on the sides, they mean that the three stripes are different, so no sides equal, a scalene triangle. Then we get an isosceles triangle. This is now where two sides are equal. And there's your isosceles triangle, with the stripes indicating the two sides are equal. And then the last triangle is our equilateral triangle. And in an equilateral triangle, all sides are equal. Therefore, we have our triangle, and it's very clear all three sides are equal. Let's look at the properties of the angles in the three triangles. On the scalene triangle, there's no equal angles. On the isosceles triangle, you find two angles equal. There's your two base angles. And then in an equilateral triangle, there's three angles equal, and each angle is equal to 60 degrees. Example 1. Name each type of triangle according to its sides. Now when we look at the first triangle ABC, we can see that side AC is equal to side AB. Therefore, two sides are equal, and that forms an isosceles triangle. In the next triangle DEF, we find that the three sides are equal. Therefore, that's an equilateral triangle. And then in triangle KLM, the three sides are different. Therefore, that's a scalene triangle. Now we can also name triangles according to their angles. The first one is an acute angled triangle. That means all angles are acute. And remember, an acute angle is an angle smaller than 90 degrees. And there's an example of an acute angle triangle. You can see the angles 87 degrees, 51 degrees, 42 degrees. Then we find a right angled triangle. So when there's one angle that's exactly 90 degrees, we call it a right angled triangle. And remember, this little symbol means it's a right angle. In other words, a 90-degree angle. And then the last triangle, according to its angle, will be an obtuse angled triangle. What's that? One angle is more than 90 degrees but less than 180 degrees. In other words, there's one obtuse angle in your triangle. There you find it. The other two are acute angles, but because there's one obtuse angle, we call that an obtuse angled triangle. The best classification of a triangle takes both its sides and angles into account. Let's see. If a triangle has two equal sides and a right angle, it is a right-angled isosceles triangle. If a triangle has two equal sides and an obtuse angle, it is an obtuse angled isosceles triangle. And then if a triangle has 3 acute angles, it is an acute angled triangle. Now there's also theorems on triangles. The first theorem is the interior angles of a triangle are supplementary, and the short or abbreviation that you may use in the exam is sum of angles in a triangle. And there on the sketch you can see all 3 angles, 60 plus 60 plus 60. They add up to 180 degrees. Remember, supplementary means they add up to 180 degrees. And then on the right hand side, there's your famous maths toolbox with all your reasons. And now there's another one for you. Sum of angles in a triangle are supplementary. Now, before I get to the next theorem, I want to discuss interior and exterior angles in a triangle. Now, first of all, the green angle you find there, that one is called the exterior angle. And an exterior angle is formed when you extend one of the sides of a triangle. And then we also get this angle and that angle. We call them, they are the opposite interior angles to the exterior angle. Now the next theorem says that the exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the opposite interior angles, and the abbreviation is exterior angle of a triangle. So there's another reason or rule for your toolbox. Now let's decide what's going on here. Have a look at the sketch. Can you see there we find the exterior angle is equal to the sum, the plus, of the opposite interior angles. And you can see that 60 plus 60 is indeed 120. Just be careful. This little angle over there, this one, we call the adjacent angle to the 120 degrees. So the 120 degrees is the exterior angle, is equal to the sum of the opposite interior angles. Now the last theorem that you can add to your toolbox is the angles opposite the equal sides in an isosceles triangle are equal, and the abbreviation is angles opposite equal sides. So into your toolbox there goes angles opposite equal sides. Now let's go to the sketch. Do you agree these two little stripes mean that the two sides are equal? So that's an isosceles triangle. And then these two base angles there, they will be equal. And when you want to use that in a test or an exam, then your reason will be angles opposite equal sides. We never say it's an isosceles triangle. That's wrong. You say angles opposite equal sides. In the next video, we will do some practice examples on solving unknowns in triangles. In other words, the type of questions you can expect in the exam. Click on the video in the left-hand corner to take you straight to the next video.